Check 1, 2.
Go! Curious about real estate? Yes! Then you've come to the right place. Get the knowledge you need. Get over the fear and get started. This is the Michael Quarles Real Estate Show with your host, Michael Quarles.
Good morning, everybody. Michael Quarles with podcast number 165. Today we have 5 questions sent in by real estate investors, and I'm going to try my best to answer them. Before we get started, a couple things. I don't know if you guys know, but we have a forum over at buysellfixflip.com. It's one of the header tabs that you can click on, and if you have any questions or anything of the community, jump on in and post them, and someone will answer them. So we have a forum at buysellfixflip.com. Second thing is, if you're interested in learning real estate investing and you like the way we do it, let us know. We'll chat with you, see if you're a fit for our coaching program, and we'll fall forward. Here we go. Question number 1. You mentioned you have passive income. So do you buy rentals? Well, I have 2 types, I guess, of passive income, and rentals are one of them. I do buy them. I don't necessarily intentionally buy them, so I'm not going out there and seeking them like some people do, where they'll go to the MLS or hire a realtor or market for them directly. And so what I'm doing basically is, if a rental comes along in my massive marketing, so in my flipping business, if a rental comes along or a house comes along that I want to keep and it meets my criteria, then I'm going to keep it. So that's one form of my passive income. However, the bigger form of passive income, and I think everybody should accomplish this in 2016. I set it for I posted it on my Facebook blog thing, whatever you call them. And I challenged everybody out there to set on their 2016 goals to quit being a real estate investor. Now, I know you guys are thinking I'm crazy, but if you think about it, we really don't want to be a real estate investor. We want to own a real estate investment company that doesn't require us. So we're not, we don't have to go to work kind of thing. We don't have that job that we're trying to get rid of. And when you create that and you can buy houses on purpose, well, then you have passive income because your business is in creating wealth for you. You're not doing it. And so if you look at the definition of passive income, so, own shares in an investment company that you own all the shares in, and set systems up and utilize those systems and have people buy houses for you. I think that's a cool thing. So yeah, I do. Question number 2. You mentioned in a training video that you'll always get title insurance when taking a project subject to the existing mortgage. I've attempted this before and was told that the title company will not issue title insurance because the property is encumbered. How do you approach this? Well, you're not asking the right questions. So, because I always get it on every house we buy subject to the existing in voluntary and voluntary liens, and involuntary liens are mechanics liens, tax liens, child support liens, those kinds of things. So anything that's against your person that will then go to real property that you own. And voluntary liens are like mortgages and loans and those kinds of things. So, if you knew about it, you agreed to it, that's a voluntary thing. If you didn't necessarily agree to it, even though you may know about it, that's an involuntary. And if your title insurance company is not saying, if they're not willing to, or they're not acknowledging that they will give you a title insurance policy based on a subject to transaction, you're not explaining to them what you're trying to accomplish. Because literally, the title insurance is really what it's doing is it's saying, okay, we're giving you title insurance with you being aware that these encumbrances are against the property. That's all it is. That's what a prelim, if you look at a prelim, that's all it is. It's 17 pages of a bunch of garbage in it. It's 17 pages of stuff like that just doesn't really mean a lot. It has about 3 or 4 pages of the encumbrances against the property, from an easement rights to, the legal description to, any of those things. And they're just telling you, hey, we're going to give you an insurance policy based upon this, which is why it's really important. If you know something that you haven't relayed to your title insurance company, mechanics, like potential mechanics liens, those kinds of things. If a seller says that they might have an outstanding note due against the property and it's not showing up on your prelim, and that you need to let your title company know that, because if you don't, then those items won't be covered under your insurance if in fact you have to make a claim for those items. So like if a seller says, hey, I think I have a $15,000 mortgage, and when they do the pre, it's not being reflected in the prelim, and therefore the insurance is not covering it, but you've been told that there's a $15,000 mortgage. Well, you need to let the title insurance know, because if that mortgage ever shows up and it is in fact recorded against the property for some reason and that the title insurance company didn't notice it, then that it's not going to be covered for you. Now, if you don't know it, you don't know it. But we get told some really strange things by sellers, so we need to divulge that to the title insurance company. And it's in our best interest. As far as how do I approach it, I just make sure that I'm dealing with the right title insurance company in the first place. Yes, some of them are difficult, more difficult than others? Absolutely. And if you're an attorney state, oh my goodness, you guys in attorney states are crazy. Move to California if you want to be crazier. But anyway, when you interview your attorney for your closings, you want to make sure your attorney understands what subject to is and fall forward. But it's a problem that presents itself, again, more because of the lack of understanding how to describe it than it is because it's an actual problem. And those of you that have fought through this understand what that means is, people tell you no, 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 and all of a sudden someone says yes, and you go, well, wait a second, I've been telling everybody else the same thing I told you, and you said yes, and they said no. Well, they just heard you differently or understood better about what you were trying to accomplish. So fall forward that way. Question number 3, what are some of the reasons you normally kick a deal? Aside from the appraisal being coming in short, more liens than equity value, a broker not wanting to go out on the BPO. What are some of the items that in your experience would make you stay away from the property? Great question. I think when we really start analyzing the property itself, how long has it been vacant? Has it gone over a period of time that we probably will have a utility issue? Meaning, if the utilities have been off in a lot of areas more than 6 months, getting those utilities to be turned back on sometimes is like an act of Congress. And in some areas, you have to have after 6 months, you have to have the house re-inspected to confirm that the utility service panels are adequate for that utility to be turned on. And when that happens, sometimes some of the stuff isn't grandfathered in. You have to actually bring it up to code. So if I have a vacant property, I'm going to be really apprehensive about buying it because I don't want to deal with those issues. If I receive pictures back from the seller about the property, let's assume for a second the seller said, hey, it needs X amount of repairs. And it may need that dollar amount in repairs. But the repairs are such as, let's take an example. You have a kitchen cabinet and you have drawer faces or door faces or fronts that are missing. Yeah, it's a minor thing from a cost perspective, but it's going to be kind of a major hassle for somebody to go in there and get those things fixed. So I would probably, some of those things that are, even though they're just cosmetic, there's going to be a lot of work to them. Now, if I was only buying 1 or 2 houses a month, who cares? Go buy them all kind of stuff on that kind of thing. But I'm trying to blow and go. I mean, I don't really care about much else than buying houses kind of thing, but I don't want to slow my production down because I have this nuisance house. When you look at these pictures and you're looking at these repairs and some of the things the house needs, also look around the outside pictures, the surrounding pictures. So, tell your sellers, go out and take me a picture of the front of the house. Well, if you ask them to stand across the street taking you a picture of the front of the house, you'll get to see the street. Maybe you ask them, we don't, but maybe you could ask them, hey, take me a picture of both sides, both directions on the street. Because you'll start noticing little things like how old is the average vehicle? Is the community that the house is in abandoned? Which is kind of crazy because you do have areas of the town that start becoming abandoned. Do I see a lot of boarded houses around? Do I see a lot of overgrown? Do I see a lot of graffiti? Do I see signs and signals? And although we're buying at a discount, we have to understand that we're reselling this stuff. And if we're going to keep it as passive income, we certainly want to make sure that we're going to keep stuff in an area that we can rent. Just because we buy it at a discount doesn't mean it's going to rent. So some of the pictures are going to tell us a lot about the property. And you can kind of get a gut feel, but don't put your personal desires, don't make them in play. So like as an example to me, I mean, I live in a nice house. I don't think I've bought a house I would live in. Well, that's not true. I did buy a house I'd live in once. But I bought a lot of houses. But one out of all of them, think about that. So I couldn't put what I wanted in a house as a requirement for what I was buying. I have to look at, what my market is. But some markets are so bad that, yeah, it's a great deal, but who cares kind of thing. You can't get rid of it. It's going to stick to you like a Klingon kind of thing. And fall forward. So when you look at the pictures, you're going to look for some of those things. So repairs inside of a house that just are going to be those nuisance repairs. Fixing a toilet's easy. Fixing a cabinet door is not so simple, but we're talking about the same value. I mean, if you go to a cabinet maker and say, hey, make me this cabinet door, and you get a painter to stain it and put finish on it, yeah, it's not that expensive. It's just a lot of work. And do you really want to go through that if you have a large inventory that you can buy from? Again, if you only have one or two houses, it's not going to be a concern of mine. And then look at the neighborhood, look at the area, look at, what's going on. Is it being abandoned? Is there old vehicles? And the reason for old vehicles is it's a sign that it's a diminishing area, that there's a poverty issue. And although I understand that poverty, people that live inside of poverty areas, they're all similar. However, we still want some stability. So if they're all older vehicles, are they all well-maintained vehicles? Do you see vehicles that, they're just on the side of the road and they're not working? Well, I'm going to try to stay away from those areas if I can. Now, you brought up a great point. If you can't get an agent or a broker out there to do a BPO, that's a sign right there. But you asked what else besides those things. So those are some 3 examples.
Thanks for listening to Buy, Sell, Fix, Flip. We'll be right back. Are you running out of leads? It's time you tried Yellow Letters at yellowletters.com. Get motivated seller leads through yellow letters, postcards, zip letters, typed professional letters, greeting cards, door hangers, and business cards. Yellow Letters is a full-service marketing company created with your success in mind. Get the personal attention you need to get your direct mail campaign started and get in touch at yellowletters.com.
And we are back in 3, 2, 1.
Question number 4. I have a personal question that I hope you don't mind answering. I always hate personal questions. What do you do with your massive income? Spend it. I'm not talking about reinvesting in your business or buying nice cars and houses. What do you do with the money left over after you reinvest in? Do you leave it in the bank, buy stock, donate it? Yes. So I leave it in the bank. I'm not really into stocks. I like my own stocks, so I invest in my own businesses. And do I note in it? Yeah, I definitely do charity. I don't call it. I guess I'm just paying it forward. I mean, someone helped me. I mean, I think after a while you realize that you can't die with it, and as long as those people that are relying upon you for their existence and understanding how to create their own existence are well fed and okay, then the rest of it you just give away. Now I don't know if I would give it all away. So maybe I'd change my opinion if I had billions of dollars. I might keep $1 billion of it and give the rest of the billions away. But when I get there, I'll have that problem and I'll talk about it. I think money, when it starts changing definitions, then some magical stuff starts happening, and you look at it differently. I remember the time that I didn't need any more money. Kind of weird thing. Now, we're not talking about, there's a difference between business asset and personal asset, and you should always have what we call a stop loss in your business. So, you just turn the faucet off if it's not running properly. But from a personal perspective, when it starts creating something, you don't need it. Doesn't have the same meaning. Like in the beginning, and how many people can raise their hand to this? In the beginning, we need money to pay like PG&E, your power bill, your water bill, food, rent, your car payment, those kinds of things. Well, when you don't have that and you still have money, and we're not talking about a monthly basis, you just don't have that. Like I pay my utility bill once a year kind of thing. Like why pay it monthly when you just get rid of the stupid thing once a year? When you don't have it, what do you do with it then? Well, you just figure out how do you want to represent your image with what you have as what you call wealth. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but to me it makes a lot of sense because I want to try to stand for something. And I don't know if I'm doing a good job or not, but I'm trying hard. It's a personal question, so I'm not going to go into detail. But I think, and what I've learned over life is, you better make sure one person's taken care of first. And once that person's taken care of, everybody else can be taken care of second, and third, and fourth, and fifth. And some people never will be taken care of. They can't even take care of themselves, and don't care how much money you give them. It's never going to take care of them. So you'll figure that out for yourself. Question number 5. Can you please explain why the marketing chart has 2 different data sheets that seem to be opposite stats? Okay, this is a coaching student question. I always love my coaching student questions because now I know how to answer them. Sometimes I get a question, I don't know who it's from, and gosh, I don't know how honest you guys want me to be, but I'm pretty I'm silly, like stupid silly, not stupid and as ignorant silly, that kind of thing. I just believe that if someone asks me a question, they want the answer. That's what my parents always said. Michael, don't ask a question if you're not prepared for the answer. I didn't talk to my parents much. Well, there's more reasons than the question. Anyway, getting on a tangent there. Question number 5. So we're getting to the marketing chart. The marketing chart is developed. It's an algorithm that we put together that kind of tells us from a market perspective what part of the market would be better or should be better than other parts of the market. Is it perfect? No, but it's better than not doing it. And actually, it's probably a lot better than not doing it. So we look at an area and on one chart, all the data sets, we look at them as equal. So, and it's a horrible analogy, but let's look at it this way. Let's assume for a second you have a nuclear bomb and a bullet. And both of them, you fire the bullet, the nuclear bomb goes off. One sheet looks at it as if the ramification of those 2 things happening, the impact, is equal. Now, I know some of you are saying, Mike, a bullet and a nuclear weapon are not equal. I get it. But for lack of better analogies, we're looking at one of them as though they're equal. So days on market is equal to how many units in a marketplace. How many units in a marketplace is equal to the foreclosure rate. The foreclosure rate is equal to the number of units with an equity base that are under median. So there's several data sets we're looking at, but we're looking at them all equally. The other sheet uses what they could be as different. So let's, as an example, we know that a nuclear weapon, if it went off, its impact is greater than a bullet if it was fired, right? I guess it's depending on who's in the way of the bullet and the nuclear weapon, but different topic. So one sheet is as if they're the equal, and the other one is as if they're different. And now, so we put different weight. So days on market may have more weight than the number of cash buyers in a zip code. It may have less weight, but we put an algorithm to it. Not going to share the algorithm. So when we run these 2 data sheets, these 2 different ways, the data is the same, and then we lay them on top of each other to find out, okay, if the area in the first sheet, which would be area number that was that 1, so we put a 1 to it, like first place. Was it first place on the second sheet, and was it third place? And then as we lay them over each other, that kind of we can look at an area based upon 2 opinions, 2 arguments. And anytime you can have multiple arguments before you make your decision, you have a better educated decision. I don't know if it makes any sense. But if you're only making decisions based upon your own opinion, most of the time that's going to be an ignorant decision. Not that you're an ignorant person, but you're not weighing enough into your decision. And if you only are basing it upon your own opinion, well, we need a little bit more research. Because what we know, we think we know, but we really haven't figured out that we don't know yet. And until you have various opinions and arguments, you don't know. You could be 100% right, but most of the time you're not going to be 100% right if you only rely on your opinion. So we look at them from various arguments and we come to a decision. And we don't come to the decision. And that's one of the beauties of relying on an algorithm or a mathematical formula is math typically doesn't lie. And so even though I may have some personal history or believe I know something, the math is going to tell me the truth. And now, once I find the answer to my algorithm and I look at an area going, okay, why is this being justified as the best area? Or, being relayed to me as the best area? Well, when I start looking at the numbers, then the numbers really can start defining why. And then then I ask myself, why am I believing that another area would be better? My answers are always emotional. Typically, it's because I like the area. Well, liking something really doesn't make it better or worse when we look at where we should be marketing. Well, the criteria for determining where you should be marketing is, where do the majority of people that you're going to sell your product to and buy your product from, where do they live? Where do they want to live? Those are the two questions, because you're not your prospect. And so we have to have multiple charts in order to determine that. So that's why we have that. So great question on that one. Hope that one made sense. I'm going to recap a little bit. You mentioned passive income. I have two types of passive income. I think we should all strive for the second type, which is get out of the real estate investment business. Stop being an investor, own one. Own your investment business. It's like saying, I want to flip hamburgers the rest of my life, or I want to own McDonald's, the company McDonald's. Well, McDonald's has a lot of hamburger flippers. There's a lot of those guys out there. But the ones that are making all the money are the ones that own the McDonald's. And they realize that through systemization, they can put people to work to do something over and over and again that creates massive income, which is called passive income. Something that is not returned to you because of your own action. It's income that's returned to you because of another person's action or a business's action. Something that you're outside of, it's passive income. Training videos, always get insurance on sub 2. And the reason we get insurance on sub 2 is because we never want to break the title of title insurance. Title insurance is not required. It's an insurance like most other insurance, except for motor vehicle insurance, liability and casualty. In California anyway, you don't need any insurance. I guess you need health care nowadays, but it's from a land ownership perspective, it's an option. Where it becomes not necessarily an option is when the buyer of your property, they're using lenders to finance the transaction, and those lenders have to have their asset protected. And the way they protect their asset from unknown encumbrances to them is by getting a lender's title insurance policy. So on all real estate resale transactions, when there's a lender involved, you have a seller's title insurance policy and you have a buyer's lender's policy. So you have a CLTA and an ALTA in California anyway. And so when you buy, unless you're financing it, you're only going to have one. If you're financing it to buy it, then you're going to have two. So in most all real estate transaction, there's 4 title insurance policies. That's why the insurance companies are so large. And again, you don't need it, but you never want to break that, because if you break it, what happens is that underlying lender, that eventual buyer's lender, they're going to have a hard time getting lender's title insurance because you had a break in title insurance chain. What the insurance companies have a tendency of doing is they like to rely on somebody else's insurance policy so they can issue theirs, because they're only insuring from the moment, although they're insuring the entire real estate, but they're really for their own purpose, they're only insuring the moment you own it to the moment you sell it. But if it didn't have title insurance in chain, then they're insuring prior to you owning it, because something could have happened there. And a lot of times, as an example, things that can happen is where you have in a community property state, you have a seller who sold property but didn't get their spouse to sign off on the transaction legally. And thus that spouse is still entitled to a share of those proceeds way back when. And you had a break in chain of title insurance. That title insurance company doesn't know if they're obligated or will be obligated for that break. And so it makes getting that title insurance a little bit harder. So we always want to make sure that we have title insurance. And at the end of the day, it's really not that expensive, guys and gals. I mean, really, it's not. And going back to title insurance, I know we're getting here in 25 minutes. I apologize. And I'll stop in a minute or two. When you get title insurance, always, if you're a flipper, if you're buy and hold, it doesn't matter. If you're a flipper, when you buy title insurance on your purchase, get a binder a writer, one or the other. Having a brain, you know what. Let them know that you're going to be reselling the property. And here's what's going to happen. Let's assume you're buying the property for $100,000. It's worth $200,000. You're going to sell it for $200,000. You're paying title insurance for the $100,000 that you're buying it for. When you resell it, you're going to pay title insurance for the $200,000. If you get the binder to bind over for the next transaction or the writer, whatever they want to call it, when you resell it, instead of paying a policy for $200,000, you're going to buy the policy for only the additional $100,000. And it's a lot less expensive. So what they're going to do in the beginning, when you buy your property in the title insurance in the first place, they're going to charge you 100% of the original policy for the $100,000. And they're going to charge you 10% more of that cost to cover the $100,000 on your resale. Mathematically, it's in your favor. So do that, okay? And I think there's a time limit of 24 months. So if you're going to flip it within 24 months, always get that binder writer kind of thing. Question number 3 was, when do we normally kick a deal? When we start seeing signs in the area of being abandoned or poverty, really bad poverty, or we just, if it's vacant for a long time, we just know that we're going to have a hard time rehabbing it. Maybe the cost, it's not necessarily cost, but what we're doing to the house is going to cause us some issues. Now, again, if we don't have a lot to do, then who cares, kind of thing. Question 4 was, what do I do with my money? Spend it and save it. And my wife has my gun safe. And guys and gals, I know we're at 27 minutes now, but I'm going to share a story. I'm going to write a book on the dumbest thing I've done as a male. And you guys out there will get a kick out of this. I one year bought my wife a jewelry box for Christmas. That's the stupidest thing you could ever do as a male. Don't ever buy your wife, I know it's Christmas season, do not buy your wife a jewelry box. Because then you have to fill it up. And being the Virgo that I am and liking to please my wife, my jewelry box that I bought her at some point became too small. And my gun safe was converted into a jewelry box. I've got issues. I know. Question number 5 was the marketing chart, and that was just 2 different algorithms. Thanks, guys. I hope my voice was better for you than yesterday, and we'll fall forward. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Michael Quarles Real Estate Show. Get more info and stay in touch at michaelquarles.com.